Welcome, ZASLOW Show 2.0. It is a Monday, the 8th of January. Good to have you aboard, part of the Believe Podcast Network, and presented as always by Anidjar and Levine, accident attorneys. 800-747-FREE, 800-747-3733. And of course, there is so much to get to today. Obviously, we're downtrodden. I know I've already got messages this morning. ZASLOW, help me out here. You got to pick me up. I feel terrible. I'm down after yesterday. We're all down after yesterday. I'm not going to be able to make it feel any better. I'm not a miracle worker, all right? We got to be honest with what happened yesterday. And it was, look, is the team in a good place overall? Yes, of course, because they're playing competitive football to the place where if they lose these games, you feel terrible. Past years, the season ends, you lose that game. Okay, we already knew we suck. So there is a silver lining in being so crushed with yesterday's loss. And it means we're playing meaningful games. And if we're playing meaningful games, that is far, far different from what we've been used to, really, for the last 20 years. But what comes with that is losses like yesterday hurt like a son of a bitch. So I'm not going to be able to make you feel much better today. Yesterday was, it's one of the worst losses the team has had in many, many years. You got to be honest. Look, NFL playoffs, they're here. NBA season is in full swing. Bet Online has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores. With additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile, you can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today to get into the action and see all the updated odds. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So a little bit of house cleaning first before we get to all the important stuff. Last night, every Sunday night, and we hit you with the live stream right in that sweet spot of after the 4 p.m. games end and before the 8 p.m. game starts. So 7 to 8 p.m., we got the live stream of It's Still Real to Me, where my wrestling podcast, and we catch up on everything in the world of pro wrestling. So if you didn't catch the live stream, please go listen to the podcast. You can always go to youtube.com/@ZASLOW Show and rewatch it. But you can also listen, of course, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening to us right now, ZASLOW Show 2.0, you get It's Still Real to Me as well. And we recapped this past week last night, which included, of course, The Rock returning last week and challenging Roman Reigns to be the head of the table. Great episode last night. Was hoping to get you fired up in between, right before the Dolphin game started. So I hope you enjoyed that. Obviously, a Dolphin game didn't go the way that we wanted to. Also, thanks to anyone who listened to me yesterday. I hosted ESPN Radio NFL Game Day again yesterday. I think it was like the 6th time maybe I've done it. So 6 times out of 18 weeks. That's pretty fucking cool. Yesterday, again, me and the coach, Herm Edwards. He's super nice to me. The show's fun. It was from 1 to 5 yesterday. Like I said, I've done it, I think, a half dozen times this year. And I've really enjoyed my time on ESPN Radio. And the great thing is, without getting into too much detail, I'm going to be doing a lot more on ESPN Radio coming up. Things are really good there. And like I said, if you've been listening, I really appreciate it. You get to it's totally different from ZASLOW Show 2.0. And while I just said things are going in a good direction there, and you're going to be hearing me a lot more on ESPN Radio, which is really great. But make no mistake about it, ZASLOW Show 2.0 is not going anywhere. If anything, that gets stronger. I'm never not going to do local Miami sports talk. I'm never, ever not going to do that. So now I'm in a place where I got ZASLOW Show 2.0. We're going to continue pumping it out every day, Monday through Friday. Maybe bonus episodes here and there. I can't predict the future. I don't know. And you're going to hear me a lot more now, starting like now, on ESPN Radio doing national shows. So I get to do both, which is the flexibility. While it was obviously scary when I was let go from $7.90 the ticket a little more than a year ago now, 15 months now, I think. While that was obviously scary, one of the benefits is I get to do multiple things. I get to, have my hands in a few different pots, if you will. So I like that. I like being able to do a bunch of different things, and I like having control of my schedule, which I do. So we're heading in a great direction, and obviously I got to thank all of you guys, listeners, and of course my great sponsors. You got to support the sponsors who support the show. That's how we keep this thing moving, and of course it's always going to be free as long as we do ZASLOW Show 2.0, which, like I said, is never going away, no matter how much national or how much ESPN radio I do, which I'm going to be doing a lot more now coming up. Anyway, we're going to talk, we'll update you a little bit on the Heat. The Heat do play tonight. The Panthers, oh, fantastic. I was in Utah this past week. I'll do a little bit of that coming up, but and of course, our Week 18 NFL rundown. We got to let everybody know exactly what Super Wildcard Weekend looks like, all right? So there's a lot happening, but we knew going into these final 3 games, all the talk all throughout the season, the Dolphins are frauds. You could take care of that business yourself. Just win the games that are in front of you. You couldn't help it if no wins against a team that's over 500. You can only play who's on your schedule. And we're going to get to a place, specifically the final 3 games of the season, where you're going to find out about this team. And what we found out was, yes, you can't ignore the injuries, but we've also found out they're not quite good enough. And maybe we got a little bit excited during the season, middle of the season, specifically 9-3 heading into that Tennessee game. But this team is not where we thought, not necessarily not where they were supposed to be, because remember how far we've come. I mean, they just hired Mike McDaniel last year, which means they were a team that was not headed in the right direction just 2 seasons ago. You would have thought that maybe they were a little ahead of schedule then, and as it turns out, yeah, I guess they were, because they're not quite good enough. All the talk about them being a fraud, you've been able to push back a bit against that if the Dolphins were going to perform these final 3 games, and the truth is, they didn't. This team is not where we thought they were. They're not quite as good as we hoped they were. That's been proven. Injuries or no injuries, that has been proven these last few weeks. You got to be fair. There's no other way to look at that. So with that out of the way, this season, unfortunately, and I mean, just think about that, by the way. Going into that Tennessee game, which was I bet 2 games this year. Raider game, they won. Not a good performance. And of course, the Titan game, fucking disaster. But going into that game, 9-3. Think about how you were feeling going into that game at 9-3 and how you feel right now. Like, it's almost crazy. I mean, yes, you could say same old Dolphins, so it's not crazy. That's why I say it's almost crazy. It's almost crazy. What a stark contrast. Monday Night Football, 9-3. Tennessee Titans. How you felt walking into that stadium. How I felt walking into that stadium. And how we feel right now for a season that is going to be remembered as this team choking away the AFC East. It's an incredibly tough pill to swallow. This season, you know, I always like to go back to 2003. I brought this up several times. 20 years ago, right? 2003, the last time going into the final couple games of the season that the Miami Dolphins controlled their own destiny as far as the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And that's the way you got to do it. You got to host as many playoff games as possible. I don't want to hear about the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers. They were a wild card team. They won the Super Bowl. Eli Manning, New York Giants. They were a wild card team, won the Super Bowl. It's the same thing as bringing up, oh, you don't need a big-time quarterback. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Those are anomalies. To get to the Super Bowl, you need home playoff games. And 20 years ago in 2003, like the most hurt I'd ever been was the Dolphins having control of their own fate, win at Minnesota and at New England, and you're going to finish 12-4, and you're the number 1 overall seed. Instead, they lost both those games, finished 10-6, missed the playoffs entirely. That's the worst I've ever felt as a Dolphin fan. Fast forward 20 years later, we're in just about the exact same spot. And it's not the exact same because this team, at least, is in the dance. They're in the playoffs. But this team, 20 years later, win your final 2 games, and you're the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. They get their shit kicked in at Baltimore, and a terrible performance yesterday, choking away the AFC East to the rival Buffalo Bills. It's almost the exact same as 20 years ago. The only difference, this team is still in the playoffs, but now it's going to take 3, no home playoff games. None. Can't happen. I do wonder, though, how did you approach the game yesterday mentally? And what I mean by that is, I'm doing game day yesterday, and we want Jacksonville to win. Because if Jacksonville loses, Pittsburgh and Buffalo both clinch playoff berths. Pittsburgh sitting around watching because they won the day before. Buffalo sitting around and watching because they're playing at night. Both would clinch playoff spots if Jacksonville loses. We wanted Jacksonville to win because then if the Dolphins win, if they lose, they're going to KC no matter what. But if Jacksonville wins and the Dolphins win, they host Pittsburgh in the first round. That sounds great. But if Jacksonville loses, which they did, we host Buffalo 2 weeks in a row. Obviously, it feels really hard to beat Buffalo 2 straight weeks. So are you thinking to yourself, and look, in a vacuum, would you rather have to beat Buffalo 2 times in a row at home, or would you rather win at Kansas City? And in a vacuum, I think you'd rather win at Kansas City. I think that's the easier scenario. And the way that I look at it is, okay, if the Dolphins did beat Buffalo yesterday, how are they going to beat them 2 times in a row? Well, they're going to get back Mostert. They're going to get back Waddle. We're going to be better. To be a completely different team almost. So I feel like we could beat Buffalo 2 times in a row. But overall, even if you think it's easier to win at Kansas City than to beat Buffalo at home 2 times in a row, you need the home playoff games. That's what it boils down to. So maybe it softens the blow a little bit that they lost yesterday and you feel they have a better chance of winning at Kansas City than at home against Buffalo. But winning 2 home games against Buffalo, as hard as that would be, is infinitely easier than now winning 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl. It's not even close. That's the biggest problem with yesterday. As hard as it feels to beat Buffalo those 2 times, it's not even close to as difficult as the road in front of the Dolphins now. And that's the part that's so frustrating. Because our expectations changed in the middle of the season, right? You went from going into the year, making the postseason, winning a postseason game. That's a great goal. But at 9-3 going into the Tennessee game, the expectations were different. Hell, the expectations were different 5 or 6 games into the season when the Dolphins scored 70 on Denver, when this Dolphin team offensively was amazing. The expectations changed. So it's not about, hey, I think it'd be easier to win at Kansas City than to beat Buffalo 2 weeks in a row at home. The goal of this season was not to, it changed. The goal of the season changed from winning a playoff game, being a success, to, yeah, this team should get to the Super Bowl. We've been talking about this all throughout the year. Are the Dolphins a Super Bowl contender? Not are they a contender to win a wild card game. Are they a contender to win? Are they a contender to get to the Super Bowl? So who cares what the easier game is, wild card weekend, hosting Buffalo or at Kansas City? And by the way, the injuries are a huge factor. I think the Dolphins can win in Kansas City next week. But do I think the Dolphins can get to the Super Bowl? Do I think the Dolphins can get to the Super Bowl 3 road games versus getting to the Super Bowl with at least 2 home playoff games? Nope. I don't believe that anymore. And that's why this season is going to, if it doesn't already, that's why this season now feels like a dud. expectations changed, and the talk had to become, can this team win a Super Bowl? I don't care about winning a wild card game. I care about this team getting to the Super Bowl. And that's what was on the line yesterday. Not winning a playoff game, that's not what it's about anymore. On the line yesterday was getting to the Super Bowl. And to do that, you needed to win the AFC East, and you needed to host 2 playoff games. That's the bottom line. And look, the Dolphins are up 14-7 at halftime. I did not feel good at halftime. And I definitely did not feel like holding Buffalo to just 7 points was an accomplishment. ZASLOW, what are you talking about? That offense, that Buffalo offense, the entire first half, they marched down the field every possession. They had 2 terrible Josh Allen turnovers. The interception to Eli Apple, awful. The interception to Deshaun Elliott, great play by Elliott, but awful decision from Josh Allen. And then another terrible decision by Allen, which, by the way, very similar to the way the game ended in the regular season last year against Buffalo, where the clock ran out on them needing a touchdown. And then Ken Dorsey totally spazzed out in the booth. Everybody remembers that. So Josh Allen, 2 long drives ended interceptions in the end zone. Another drive was a touchdown drive. And you also had Josh Allen throwing the ball over the middle, tackled inbounds. Great play by Jerome Baker. Clock runs out. 4 possessions there in the first half. Buffalo marched down the field. And 3 of those times, because of awful decisions by Josh Allen, they didn't score. So yeah, the Dolphins are ahead 14-7 at halftime. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good at all. And here's how I was feeling the whole second half. Especially the fourth quarter. Especially the fourth quarter. Even though he had a poor game, both quarterbacks were bad. Even though he had a poor game, it always felt like Josh Allen was doing whatever it takes to carry his team to a win. I never felt that way about Tua yesterday. When the Dolphins had the ball in the second half, specifically when they had the ball in the fourth quarter, did you feel like it's Tua time? He's going to take them down the field. They get the huge turnover from Christian Wilkins. They get the huge stop on the fourth down stand. Did it feel like Tua is taking this game, is taking control, is taking the game in his hands, and is going to win it for you? When Josh Allen had the ball in the fourth quarter, and really the entire half, all the scrambling, the breaking tackles, all of it, it always, even though he had a shit game, and his turnovers are a major problem for Buffalo, it always felt like Josh Allen was going to carry this team to a win no matter what he was going to do, whatever it takes out there. And I love Tua. You didn't feel that way about Tua yesterday. Josh Allen was carrying that team no matter what. Even if he's shit, I'm still going to will this team to a win. You don't feel that way about Tua. And that's not me saying move on from Tua or anything like that. Not at all. Like, not even close. Not even close. And Tua's going to get paid this offseason, okay? And I know Dolphin fans are angry at Tua right now, and that's fine. Maybe it'll change next week when they go to Kansas City and they win at the champs in Patrick Mahomes. And Tua wins his first ever playoff game. Tua's going to appear in his first ever playoff game. We'll see. But in the huge moments, Tua has not been great. And you don't feel... I've told you this before. One of my biggest things with Tua, he's super accurate. He throws a great ball. I'm a Tua guy, but you got to be fair. He has to make something happen after those stops. After Wilkins gets the turnover, after they stop Josh Allen inside 2 minutes, he's the number 5 overall pick. He's drafted to be a franchise quarterback. He's in his 4th year in the league. He has the weapons. Had a healthy offensive line yesterday. Achane, Jeff Wilson, they're doing a fine job yesterday, even without Mostert. You got Tyreek Hill. I understand he left the game. He wasn't in on the final play. But Tua was drafted to specifically be the guy in the fourth quarter with the division on the line. He was drafted specifically to be the guy who takes control of the game. Josh Allen, you felt like, was carrying his team in that fourth quarter. You didn't feel that way about Tua. And like I said, I'm not wavering in my support for Tua. You're not going to hear me. You got to move on. You got to trade him. Any kind of bullshit like that. Because that's bullshit. It's bullshit. You're not going to hear that from me. But Tua, my biggest criticism of Tua, he's very accurate. He throws a great ball. But he doesn't make those magical plays. He doesn't make those magical plays when everything breaks down. He's got to scramble. If something gets thrown off, can you count on him to improvise? Josh Allen, and you saw yesterday, especially on that fourth down, on that scramble to pick up the first down right before they didn't get the next fourth down. It was 3rd and 17 or something. Josh Allen is capable of making those magical plays. The improvisation. Tua doesn't make those magical plays. And you needed that yesterday, and you don't get it from him. And when you're drafted that high to be a franchise quarterback, and you're getting paid what the Dolphins are going to pay him, and they should, you have to win those games yesterday. That's what yesterday called for, was Tua making the magical plays. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Now, there's other blame to go around. You want to talk about Mike McDaniel and abandoning the run in the second half? Look, Buffalo changed up their defense. Okay. And even if it's, they should have run the ball more. This offense has been amazing all year. Tua led the league in yards. You got Tyreek Hill. Having the ball in Tua's hands and trying to get the ball to his best playmakers, Tyreek Hill, and in other games, Jalen Waddle. I understand sometimes you want to run the ball more. It's not like it's a bad thing to put the ball in your best player's hands. So I'm not going to be critical about that in the second half when that's what the defense was calling for, how Buffalo was playing you. But Tyreek Hill's not without blame. Let's be honest. 3 games, just off the top of my head, 3 games, he has had major blunders. He had the fumble against Kansas City late in the first half, returned for a touchdown, 21-0. They lose 21-14. It cost them the game. It lost them that game against Kansas City. You had the drop touchdown in Baltimore last week. The momentum completely swung at that point as the Dolphins were ahead at that juncture of the game. Yesterday, that 3rd down in the fourth quarter, Tyreek Hill straight up dropped the ball. Dolphins have to punt. And by the way, on the final drive where Tyreek Hill, he draws the pass interference, he still should have caught that ball. And if he did, there was all kinds of open space. It may have been a touchdown to tie the game. Tyreek Hill has some major drops this season that have cost his team games. It's true. You got to be fair and point that out. And this offense hasn't done shit all year long against a good team. Both games against Buffalo, they scored 20, they scored 14. Against Kansas City, they scored 14. Against Philadelphia, they scored 17. Against Baltimore, they scored 19. This offense hasn't done shit against the good teams. Nothing. And in the second half, when the defense did make 2 major plays, the Wilkins fumble, the 4th down stop, the offense and Tua did nothing. I told you, I'm a Tua guy. But you got to be fair. He doesn't make the magical plays. And yesterday, the defense was not good in the first half. I already told you that. The defense made 2 major stops in the second half. The offense needs to come through in that spot. You have to. And yes, the injuries play a major factor, no doubt about it. But this team, they lost 3 of their last 5 games to blow a 3-game division lead. It's inexcusable. And that's why it feels like I did 20 years ago when they had a chance for the number one spot and they totally blew it. And this team was better than that one. Let's be honest. The goal was to win a Super Bowl. You can't win a Super Bowl playing 3 road games. Can't do it. This team was 3 home wins away. Going into yesterday, this team was 3 home wins away from going to the AFC Championship game. Win yesterday, win wild card at home, win divisional round at home. They were 3 home wins away from the AFC Championship. And now, they're 3 road games away from getting to the Super Bowl. They choked it away. The reality is, we know about this team now. We were going to find out, and now we know. 3 monster games to finish the season. Blown out in 1, played very poor, and lost at home with everything on the line 2 of the 3 games. We found out they're not good enough. Right now, they're not good enough. This season is a dud. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. What was a fun season, a really fun season, almost the entire way through, will be remembered as a dud. Because you can't go to the Super Bowl having to play 3 road games. They went 1-5 against teams with a winning record, and now have to go on the road 3 times against teams with a winning record. They're done. And this season is a big disappointment. I'm sorry. You wake up like, oh, it's ZASLOW. Maybe you'll make me feel a little bit better. I can't do it. If I'm going into the postseason and I'm saying this team is done, it's a major disappointment. They're not done as far as can they win a playoff game. They could win next week in KC. The goal is at least get to the Super Bowl. They're done. Can't happen. It's not possible. And that makes this season a dud. And look, I'm not saying they can't win in Kansas City, but this season was not about winning 1 playoff game. It was about the Super Bowl, and it's not possible now. And the season's also a dud because the Dolphin fan deserved to attend a home playoff game. Maybe 2. I told my son he wanted to buy tickets to go to the Jets game a couple weeks ago. I'm like, no. Save your money. I'll save my money. We're going to go to a playoff game. So much better. Not even possible. It's gone. Dolphin fan deserved to see a home playoff game this year. Didn't get it last year, not getting it this year. And on top of it, here's also what makes this really tough to swallow. What was the number one concern going into the season? The number one concern in regards to the Dolphins' success. Can Tua stay healthy? He started 17 games. Got through the whole season. Was never knocked out of a game. He started 17 games. And it wasn't good enough. Wildcard team. Doesn't even get you a home playoff game. It's like they wasted the healthy Tua season. And that's really tough to swallow. Really tough. Now, we do have some other NFL news, by the way. You got 2 coaches who are already fired. Black Monday. You guys know how that goes. 2 coaches already fired. Tell you about that in a moment here. None of us probably slept well last night. None of us got that good sleep. Even if you had sheets and giggles, I'm not sure it would have helped. But if you don't have sheets and giggles, hey, there's every other night you want to make sure you get the good sleep. Go to sheetsgiggles.com and you're going to get the softest, coolest, most breathable sheets out there. Sheets and Giggles, one of our great sponsors here on ZASLOW Show 2.0. Been with us for about 7 or 8 months, and I'm getting the best sleep of my life since Sheets and Giggles joined on. That's right, my man Colin, founder and CEO of Sheets and Giggles. I got the blanket. He sent me the pillowcases, the sheets, the comforter. Oh my God, it's my favorite comforter. I sleep on a eucalyptus pillow, and as a result, every night, not last night, because last night we're all upset, but every other night, I'm getting the best sleep of my life, and the ZASLOW family are now 4 of us, of over 100,000 Americans who sleep on Sheets and Giggles and are never turning back. Get the best sleep of your life. Surprise your spouse, surprise your kids, surprise your friends. Hey, maybe just treat yourself. Sheetsgiggles.com, and if you use promo code ZASLOW, you'll get 20% at checkout off your first order. Promo code ZASLOW. 20% off your first order, sheetsgiggles.com.